much you could really complain or be picky about. As I mentioned earlier, Final Fantasy IV is simple, and it excels at that. But in no way does that mean it's boring either. It still manages to offer enough for the player to be intrigued and want to explore as well. You'll travel through many cities and villages and see slight differences between each one of them, whether that's visually or the sort of NPCs you'll be speaking with. There isn't an overwhelming amount of people to talk to in these cities, but that can actually encourage you to speak with everyone because there's not so many to get through, and most of the time you won't regret it. It's a nice and quick 2 to 3 lines of dialogue. You'll find that most of these villages will have an inn, as well as an item and a weapons shop, which you'll be using throughout the entire game to get your potions, phoenix downs, new weapons, and all that sort of stuff. It also has some really interesting girls that will swim or dance. Yep, that's dancing. Okay, fine, they twerk. It's not much, but it makes the cities feel alive most of the time, and memorable to an extent. Plus, the game encourages dungeon exploration, rewarding you with items for 100% completing dungeon floors. So even when you're in some of the biggest...
Не разделяются. То есть как бы, то есть это значит, что люди разделяют это. Есть танец, а есть эта штучка, которая. Я понял. Это важно как бы по Фрейду получается. Он про тебя говорит так. Ну ладно. Ну все так думают, да.
Occasions, I would still recommend seeing all of it, as you might get a pretty good weapon or a pretty good item out.
Какие-то люди, какие-то девушки танцуют, а какие-то люди делают вверх, что ли, или что? Я не понимаю танцуют. Ну да. А нет, ну танец и стриптиз это понятно, что разные вещи, как бы. Ладно, короче, не надо.
Like a phoenix down, elixir, or anything of the sort. As for the world map, it's not too big, and with you having access to an airship from an early point of the game, you can explore everything it has to offer, or a pretty good item out there, like a phoenix down, elixir, or anything of the sort. As for the world map, it's not too big, and with you having access to an airship from an early point of the game, you can explore everything it has to offer pretty quickly. Some of these places you won't have to visit till much later on, and they might be locked off of course, but the player freedom is definitely appreciated. Now, so far, it might be sounding like I have absolutely no faults with the game whatsoever, and even though I can't say there was anything particular to hate on, I can definitely recall some stuff that should be pointed out if you're planning to play this game. Starting with something that seems to be an issue with a lot of these old games, and that's direction, or rather informing the player of what needs to be done. There were cases during my playthrough where I found myself finishing up a dungeon or cutscene and then just had to figure out exactly what it is that I'm supposed to do next. Now, to be fair, FF4 doesn't struggle with this as much as some other games in the series, like FF7 for example, but there was one particular event that stuck out to me, and I just cannot do this video without mentioning it. So at a point in the game, you visit a kingdom regarding the crystal, but soon find out that that a dark elf stole it and is hiding away in a cave. You get told which direction the cave is in, so I decided to explore the castle after I returned and just headed out. I soon realized you can only access this cave with a black chocobo, and the only way for you to know that is if you explored beforehand and you heard that black chocobos are capable of flying. Now, luckily for me, I did actually find that out, so proceed cave with a black chocobo, and the only way for you to know that is if you explored before. And you heard that black chocobos are capable of flying. Now, luckily for me, I did actually find that out, so I proceeded to the dungeon like normal, cleared it up, got to the boss. And what followed was pretty much slaughter. I soon realized I had no chance against this boss. It killed all of my party members in one hit. This made me assume that of course it's a scripted defeat because there's absolutely no way I could beat this guy. Only to then be kicked out of the main menu. Just like I would be if I lost any normal encounter. So I was really confused and thought to myself, hold on a minute, did my game just glitch out? So I went in again, and the same thing happened again. I get the boss, he defeats everyone with one hit, and I get kicked out. To the main menu. Little did I know that you actually had.
Hi, it's Kirk and Rob from Metallica. And to support our foundation and celebrate the 30th anniversary of the Black Album, we teamed up with Omaze to give you the chance to win a limited edition Mercedes AMG GT Stuff Edition.
And yes, taxes and shipping are included.
It's the ultimate in technology and performance, but the real question is, how much more black could it be?
And the answer is none more black. Check it out.
Matte graphite paint, all black trim, and black staggered AMG wheels. Go to omaze.com/Metallica for your chance to win a totally blacked out version of a Mercedes AMG's top of the line luxury supercar.
Best of all, every donation will support our non-profit, all within my hands.
We thank all of you and good luck.
actually had to explore the castle first and encounter. Doesn't struggle with this as much as some other games in the series, like FF7 for example, but there was one particular event that stuck out to me and I just cannot do this video without mentioning it. So at a point in the game, you visit a kingdom regarding the crystal, but soon find out that a dark elf stole it and is hiding away in a cave. You get told which direction the cave is in, so I decided to explore the castle after I returned and just headed out. I soon realized you can only access this cave with a black chocobo, and the only way for you to know that is if you explored beforehand and you heard that black chocobos are capable of flying. Now, luckily for me, I did actually find that out, so I proceeded to the dungeon like normal, cleared it up, got to the boss, and what followed was pretty much slaughter. I soon realized I had no chance against this boss. It killed all of my party members in one hit. This made me assume that of course it's a scripted defeat because there's absolutely no way I could beat this guy. Only to then be kicked out of the main menu just like I would be if I lost any normal encounter. So I was really confused and thought to myself, hold on a minute, did my game just glitch out? So I went in again, and the same thing happened again. I get to the boss, he defeats everyone with one hit, and I get kicked out to the main menu. Little did I know that you actually had to explore the castle first, and encounter a certain person for the scripted event to take place later on. This meant I had to escape the dungeon, head back to the castle, interact with that person, only to then repeat that entire process again. Now what I want to make clear is that the issue here wasn't a time wasted or having to go through enemies again, because if anything it's just grinding, it's going to make me stronger, right? I had no issues with that. But it was the fact that I didn't know I was missing any sort of items, so I started to assume my game bugged out, and that I might need to start a completely new save, wasting hours that I've already put in. But there were definitely a few moments throughout my playthrough where I just had to check online to see what's required of me, because I kind of just stood there and went, well, now what? But with that little side story out of the way, I think it's time I tackled the last big portion that I wanted to talk about, and it's the thing you'll be doing most of the time, of course, that being the combat. Final Fantasy IV gives you control of 5 parts. Party members at once in its active battle system. This for sure brings up the intensity of the battles because you're constantly thinking for 5 unique characters at once. Each member has a pre-assigned job that also gives them unique abilities, such as Rydia being a summoner, Kain having the jump command as a dragoon, Rosa having the pray ability as a white mage, and so on. Everyone's a little bit different. This means no skill trees or anything of the sort that you might be used to with more recent JRPGs, but instead it makes everyone not only unique, but serve a different purpose for why they should be in your party and why you might need them at this time. Some are definitely more powerful and useful than others. For example, black magic is a huge part of the combat in this game, but those characters will usually have a lower HP than something like a knight, for example, so the balance is clearly there. As a little tip though, I will say don't get attached to too many characters because you'll constantly have people leave and rejoin again, so definitely level up everyone consistently, don't focus on one guy only. Luckily though, the leveling up system is really good and you'll find that it's actually well balanced out. At no point did I feel like I wasn't earning enough XP to level up at a good speed. It always felt like whatever point of the game I was at, I was getting just the right amount, and I'm not sure of the specifics of how it works, but at least for me, it seemed perfect. As for the actual battle speed, initially I found the game a little bit slow, but then I realized there's actually an option to speed up combat which I would highly recommend, especially once you're more accustomed to the commands and what everyone's good at and what you want to do with each character. I would turn that up because it makes the game go way faster and definitely seem more modern. As for the mobs that you'll be encountering, you'll quickly get used to their strengths and weaknesses, but it's the bosses that will switch up every so often since they have multiple phases, therefore forcing you to apply new tactics. All of this on top of the fact that this specific port of Final Fantasy IV is considered pretty difficult apparently, as it is a DS version of the game, so if you enjoy a challenge, you'll be right at home with this one. And of course, because this is an older game, random encounters are a thing. Personally, I would say they happen a little too often. It can get frustrating at times, especially when you're just walking back and forth, finding your way around. But luckily, the combat is very fun and enjoyable, especially when you've turned up the speed, like I said. So even when grinding, I was honestly having a lot of fun. Plus, it's accompanied by some very good battle music, which gets even better whenever it's a boss fight. Personally, I wouldn't say it's an all-time favourite soundtrack for me, compared to the other entries in the series, but it does have some standouts, especially with the slower tracks like the Theme of Love. Regardless though, it's a very solid soundtrack, so don't worry, it's just right to get you through the journey. Compared to the other 3 videos I made like this was probably the hardest one to do. Final Fantasy IV is considered a classic amongst the Final Fantasy community. It represents so much of the series and its traits. By today's standards, it doesn't really offer anything mind-blowing, and its story can be pretty predictable, to say the least. When some of the biggest plot twists were being revealed, in the back of my head I just thought, well, I saw that one coming. But despite that, it does so much to a really good level, it's hard to hate on the game. It doesn't overcomplicate things, it knows what it's good at, and it stays in its lane. Plus, with the Steam or DS version of the game, new graphics might not look as cool as the original versions, but it brings a visually smoother experience, plus some cutscenes with voice acting, which I was actually surprised by, and in all fairness, they're pretty solid as well. It's a good way to experience a classic in a modernized yet original way. The main cast is very enjoyable, and even though they might not be joking around too much, they definitely aren't boring or stiff to ruin the experience. Plus, a very intriguing and powerful villain to push the plot forward. Again, there's just not much to hate on here. Final Fantasy IV is that game that does so many things to such a good level, but just does not excel at anything specific. It's a really strong, solid entry in the series, and if you're looking for a pure, simple yet fun JRPG, regardless of if you've played many other Final Fantasies or this is your first one, I definitely think it's worth giving a shot. Quickly now, before you click off the video, let me just say a huge thank you for watching, guys. These videos take ages to get done, I'm not going to lie to you, so your attention and time to watch this means a lot, honestly. If you did enjoy it, maybe consider sharing it with others, and please leave a comment with your opinion on what you thought of the video down below. This was the first Worth Playing in 2021 video, and it definitely won't be the last. They take a while, but I love making them, and I want to keep this series going. I'm not sure exactly which game I'll do next, but if you have any specific titles for me to cover, just comment it down below. I'm mostly looking to move on to the newer games, it's just a matter of picking which one it is. Make sure to check out these videos for FF7, 8 and 9 if you haven't already, but with all that, I think that is enough talking for one video. Once again, huge thank you to all of you guys, I really appreciate you, and I will see you in the next one. I'm out.
Есть комплимент от заведения.
Эй, ну да, он не имел в виду, да. Наоборот, наоборот. Он о себе так думает. Самое время. Да, понял я просто уже, да.
So for this video, I'm going to be doing exactly what the title says, and I'm going to be turning toilet paper into drinkable alcohol. I don't know exactly where this idea came from, but about 6 months ago, I became convinced that this conversion was possible. This is because toilet paper, and well, pretty much all paper, is made almost entirely of cellulose. Cellulose naturally occurs in almost all plants, and we use it to make everything from cotton clothing to paper or cardboard. What I've always found interesting, though, is that at the core of it, it's just a chain of simple glucose sugar molecules. Sugar is something that we usually associate with food, but in cellulose, the glucose units have been strung together in a very specific way, which gives it completely different properties. This has always blown my mind, because it means that our clothing, and almost all paper, is basically made out of sugar, and wood is also about 50% cellulose, so a lot of our houses are...
Наоборот, блин. На себя-то, ну это он меня. Вот это его. Ну он себя, ну это именно он сам, именно, да, понимаю. Но он себе так думал. Да. Стокгольма. Ну это было. Эй. Можно просто почти уровень взрослый. Эй. А, ну да, вот это банк. Коляска, коляска. С кубальтом. Кофеюшки. Кофеюшечки.